What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and today we're going to talk through my must-add waiver wire targets for Week 16 of the fantasy football season. It is the second round of the playoffs. The stakes are high, and we actually have a lot of good players available on the waiver wire. We're going to talk through 10 or so players, all under 50% owned in ESPN leagues. As always, if you enjoy, leave a like, subscribe. Let's go.
VVS stones, like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like I'm frozen, she gon' let me.
Now, with these videos towards the end of the year, it's the playoffs. There are no more stashes. It is just simply, if you need a guy, go get him. So we're going to talk through running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks, and we used to do priority ads and this is a player I would bid 15% or more on. If you have a player, right, the first player we'll talk about here is Jerome Ford. If you need a running back this week, empty the clip. There's no reason to be conservative. It is do or die time at this point in the season, and Jerome Ford is our first running back we'll talk about here because Nick Chubb, sad to see it, came into the season with a torn ACL. He breaks his foot, so he's out for the year. And now we have Jerome Ford in a lead back role for the Cleveland Browns. He gets Cincinnati in this next matchup, who has been a bad defense. They just let Tyjae Spears run all over them. And you can see here from @Dave Richard, once Chubb left in the mid-third quarter, Jerome Ford had 80% plus of the snaps. Pierre Strong was more of a 20% guy. So we get an 80-20 split without Chubb. That's great. Jerome Ford had 7 carries, 84 yards, a touchdown. He had 2 targets, 2 catches, 20 yards. He should get more touches than 9 like he had last week. It should be more in like the 12 to 15 range, and that should be enough to go into your RB2 spot. Now, the next player or next running back we'll talk about is Kendre Miller. He's only rostered in 8% of ESPN leagues. He had 10 opportunities this week. He got a little bit of run last week as well, even with Kamara. And we now have a situation where Kamara could be missing some time here. We have a tweet from J.J. Zacharyson. Alvin Kamara suffered a groin injury against the Commanders, and Kendre Miller led the backfield in snaps as a result. He outsnapped Jamal Williams 26-6 while running 11 more routes. So that's a big discrepancy between him and Jamal Williams. So if Alvin Kamara was to miss time, that would mean Kendre Miller is the lead back by a very wide margin. If he's running more routes, way out snapping him. And you can see here from Jeff Mueller, he is an injury analyst. Kendre Miller has a chance to be a league winner in Week 16. Alvin Kamara will likely have a difficult time playing through the groin injury given his skill set and movement tendencies. So really nice setup for him. I do want to see who they're playing as well, because it's very relevant at this point, right? These aren't players that you're thinking of, maybe he'll be a league winner for the next 3 weeks. Like, you're kind of thinking week by week with a guy like Kendre Miller. Last week in Week 14 versus the Giants, he had 10 carries, 32 yards, and a touchdown. This past week, 9 for 46 on the ground. He gets Green Bay and then Las Vegas. So not like the prettiest schedule. Las Vegas should be a lot easier than Green Bay, but he should be getting a lot of volume. Now, more of a talent play than a volume play. I'd say the first two are volume plays. We have Tyjae Spears, our number 3 running back ad for this week. He went absolutely crazy. Just absolutely looked really good, super explosive. He had 4 carries for 5 yards and a touchdown, but it was really the receiving game where he had 6 catches, 87 yards, and a touchdown. 2 touchdowns versus Cincinnati for 27.2 PPR points. He gets Indy this week and then Jacksonville the week after that. So 2 really light matchups, and it kind of comes down to how banged up Pollard is. Tony Pollard left this game for a little bit, re-aggravated his foot, and you can see his snap share from weeks 13 through 15 from Fantasy Life's utilization report have declined every single week. Tyjae Spears has increased every single week as he's coming back from his own injury. Now, Pollard still had 17 opportunities in this most recent game to Spears 11. But we can see this flip-flop if Pollard's injury does linger, and Spears has proven to be explosive and really good at catching passes in PPR, just like our 4th running back on this list, Amir Abdullah. He played last night, of course. He had 7 catches, 58 yards, receiving a touchdown. And now you have Sincere McCormick banged up. Sincere McCormick left this game with an injury. And @Dave Richard has here, Abdullah played, it was like a 60-40 split between him and Madison. But if Abdullah's going to get a ton of run in the receiving game, they have, I want to say, Norv Turner, and then maybe his son Scott Turner is calling the plays there. They of course have a history with guys like Darren Sproles and McCaffrey. Amir Abdullah is obviously not that, but if he's going to get 5+ catches here down the stretch and a few carries here and there, he's somebody you can definitely put in your RB2 spot. It just comes down to the health status of Sincere McCormick. Then we have our 5th running back, Kamani Vidal. This one, it's tough. It should be exciting that he finally outsnapped Gus Edwards, as we can see here from Fantasy Life, but it didn't result in a ton of opportunities. He had just 6 opportunities to 8 for Edwards, and this is really just because the Chargers were in a trailing game script versus Tampa Bay, where they were just passing the ball a ton. So you could see 43% of the routes for Kamani Vidal. That's where most of his snaps came from. Still 8 opportunities for Edwards, 6 for Vidal. I think Gus Edwards is still the guy they're going to be wanting to give the opportunities to, the touches, the goal line touches, but somebody to definitely roster here moving forward. And then our last running back we'll talk about here is Isaiah Davis. And honestly, if you want to put him ahead of Kamani Vidal, you absolutely can, just because of the uncertainty of the running backs in front of him. We have Breece Hall, who came into this game with a knee injury. He didn't look right. He only had 48% of the snaps. This is, again, from Fantasy Life here, looking at their utilization report comparison tool. Braylon Allen, he gets hurt. So, yeah, Breece Hall getting 11 opportunities in this game. Davis 6. Braylon Allen 2. Of course, Braylon Allen gets hurt. Breece Hall is somebody who can get hurt at any time at this point. His knee has been an issue. And then Isaiah Davis, we've seen now a couple weeks ago where he was actually, I wouldn't call him a league winner, but he gave you like 15 PPR points in a spot where you probably really needed it. So we'll see. Something to monitor, something where Isaiah Davis could be a big beneficiary of 2 banged-up running backs in front of him. Now, moving on from that, we have the wide receivers. First up, this guy's probably not available in your league, but you have Romeo Doubs. He's available in 60% of ESPN leagues. He had 5 targets, 3 catches, 40 yards, 2 touchdowns in that, I want to say it was primetime game versus the Seahawks. He's always going to run a ton of routes, and he's attached to Jordan Love. It's not going to be like the most steady volume in the world, but he finds his way into the end zone. He finds his way to 5 catches for 50-yard stat lines, and that's valuable off of waivers. And then we have some rookie wide receiver upside. Now, this hasn't been a great year for rookie wide receiver upside in terms of, yes, we're getting some big hits in terms of Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Nabers has been good, and Ladd McConkey's been good, but there's usually one of these later round drafted guys, right, like Rashee Rice last year, or Amon-Ra St. Brown in the past, or Christian Watson in the past. We haven't had one of those, Puka Nacua, of course, Tank Dell. Jalen McMillan could maybe be that. I struggle to see it because when we look at the rookie receiver report, he's been bad, but he has been a rookie next to Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Cade Otton. But he's near the bottom of the rookie receiver report. He's between Luke McCaffrey and Troy Franklin in terms of his PFF grade at 55.5. He did increase his PFF grade by 3.4. His per route stats have been bad, but over the last 2 weeks, he has been the wide receiver 9 in fantasy football. He's coming off a game where he had 6 targets, 5 catches, 75 yards, and a touchdown. A lot of his production has been from touchdowns, but Baker's been cooking, and they get a Dallas defense in a dome next week. So if you need a prayer in the flex spot, Jalen McMillan isn't a terrible option. And then more of a talent play or an efficiency play would be Jalen Coker. Now, this one's tougher because, of course, Bryce Young is the one playing quarterback, but in terms of rookie wide receiver upside, Jalen Coker is over 2 yards per out run in the rookie receiver report. He's over a 75 PFF grade. He has been rock solid. He just put up over 100 yards, a touchdown in this previous game. He's looked really good, and if Xavier Legette is actually hurt and is going to miss time, that's going to open up opportunities for Jalen Coker where he could be somebody that you're starting down the stretch. And then we have 2 players, 1 tight end, 1 quarterback here. First, we have Brenton Strange, who I actually liked coming out of school. Of course, they drafted him behind Evan Ingram, so he can't really get much opportunity on the field, but he was a second-round pick out of Penn State, which is good draft capital. I mean, he tested really well, right? He's more of a move tweener tight end at like 6'3", 6'4", 250 pounds, but 4.7 speed, 36-inch vertical, 9.09 relative athletic score. And then also in the 5 games, weeks 2, 3, 4, 5, and 15, he has been at 10.9 PP points per game, which is the tight end 8 in 2024, just ahead of Mark Andrews and Tucker Kraft. So he's been really solid. And if you need a tight end, Brenton Strange is really good. Like, he's probably going to be like a top 12 guy in projections this week. And then our last player, it pains me to put him in here. We got Aaron Rodgers. He's the QB 12 on the season. Of course, that's really more an availability thing than a production thing, but He's been averaging 9.7 points per game over his last 4 games. That would be, top 8 type of production at this point. He gets the Rams at home in New York, who allow the 8th most fantasy points to quarterbacks, and he's kind of been cooking as of recently. So, he threw 3 touchdowns and rushed for 45 yards this past week. Him and Devontae got along. The week before that, he finally threw for 300-plus yards since 2021. He's on a little bit of a heater. If you really need quarterback help, you're down bad. I like Aaron Rodgers, especially because he's not like these guys like Jameis Winston or Will Levis in weeks past where there's benching risk. I don't think that there's really any scenario where they would bench Aaron Rodgers. So he's someone who will play the entire game. He'll probably get you like 15 points. But if you're down bad in need of a quarterback, I think Rodgers is my pick this week. But that's going to do it for us today. Appreciate all you guys watching. It's late in the year. Congrats to anybody out there. If you made it to the second round of the playoffs, it is an absolute gauntlet out here. A lot of teams got absolutely railroaded this week. But as always, appreciate you guys watching. And I will see y'all, I will see y'all in the next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like I'm frozen.